So this is lesson 3.3, Gauss elimination, solving systems of equation. I went over part of this in class, and I'm going to start at the beginning of this. So you should have this lecture guide in front of you. It follows pretty much exactly what it says, but I'm going to be on the PowerPoint as I talk to you about this. So here let me get back to the slideshow. So how can we solve the following system? Well, the first thing that we need to do is use a matrix to express the system, which we learned from 3.1 and 3.2. So if you notice that here's a 1 right here, get me a pen up here. There's a 1 in front of this, understood, a 1 in front of this, these understood ones. And then if you look right here, you notice that these are the coefficients of the x values. These are the coefficients of the y values, and these, notice it's -1 and -2 because of the minus, are the coefficients of the x values, z values. And so this part is called the coefficient matrix, this section. And then the whole thing is called an augmented matrix. Row operations, which is the next thing on your sheet, talks about, or it shows us how to what we can do to this matrix so that we can find the solution to the system that we saw. So one thing that you can do is swap rows. And if you notice here, here's a row and here's a row. The only thing that happened, this is row 1, right here, row 1. This is row 2. And it says to swap row 1 and row 2. That's what this symbol right here means, is to swap. And so we just put row 1 on bottom and row 2 on top. So that's one row operation. The next row operation is you can multiply a row by a non-zero constant. So this says that we're going to multiply row 3 by 1. So if you notice here, 1 times 3 is 3, 2 times 3 is 6, 3 times 3 is 9. So that says multiply row 3 times row 1, and it's going to be what row 1 becomes. And notice row 2 did not change anything. The next row operation is that you can add 2 rows together. So this says row 1 plus row 2. Oh, golly gee willikers, hang on. So this says row 1 plus row 2, and we're gonna put it in row 2. So 1 plus 4 is 5. 1 plus 4 is 5. 2 plus 5 is 7. And 3 plus 6 is 9. And so that's just telling you to put it in row 2. Notice row 1 stayed the same. Okay, the row being replaced must come second in the addition. Use multiplication and addition together. So this says that we're going to multiply row 1 by -4. We're going to add row 2, and we're going to leave it in row 2. So times -4 is -4 plus 4, that gives us 0. 2 times -4 is -8 plus 5, and that gives us -3. -4 times 3 is -12 plus 6 is -6. We left it in row 2. Notice row 1 did not change. But this is what these little symbols mean. It's just kind of think of them as variables, but they're actually, you know, entire rows. All right. Before we do this, I think there's something else that comes into, I don't know why it's not letting me out of that. It's not letting me go away from the, here I can do it this way. Sorry about this. I'm going to pause this for just a second. Okay, I don't believe that the PowerPoint went over this section, so I'm going to do it with you. So this says, do exactly as the directions instruct you. Write the augmented coefficient matrix of the system. So that would be 5, 3 would be our X column. 8, 5 would be our Y column. And then our equals column is 12, 7. So the whole thing is an augmented matrix, and this is the coefficients. Alright, so here it says perform the row operation. So we're going to say 1/5 times row 1 and leave row 1. So we're not going to do anything to the bottom, so we're just going to write it down. Now if I say 1/5 times 5, I get 1. If I say 1/5 times 8, I get 8/5. If I say 1/5 times 12, I get 12/5. And so, if you notice, that's exactly what the next one starts with. See, the 1/5. Here it is, the 1, the 8/5, the 12/5, the 3, the 5, the 7. Okay, so this one says to multiply row 1 by -3 and add it to row 2. So -3 times 1 plus 3. Let me write my new matrix. I'll write a little bigger. Alright, so the top row is going to stay the same because here it says we're going to replace row 2. So this is not changing. But this is going to become -3 times 1 plus 3, and that gives us 0. -3 times 8/5 plus 5 is -24 over 5 plus 5. I don't have my calculator. Also, for just a second, get my calculator. Okay, so that was 1. And then -3 times 12/5 plus row 1, which is 7. And that leaves us with, hold up, let me do the -3 times 8/5 plus 5. That's not 1, that's 1/5. And then the next one is negative 1/5. Alright, so here's, we can see that that's correct because that's what they got for the next row. Alright, so this one says, number 4, says multiply row 2 by 5 and leave it in row 2. So that means the top row 1 stays the same, and that we're going to multiply row 2 by 5. So times 5. 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 1/5 is 1. 5 times negative 1/5 is negative 1. And this line right here, sometimes they draw it solid, sometimes they draw it dotted. It's just an imaginary line that separates the coefficients from the constants. Alright, so the next one says to multiply row 2 by negative 8/5 and add it to row 1. So we're going to leave row 2 alone. We're going to multiply it by negative 8/5 and add it to this. Well, I should do that up here. Multiply by negative 8/5 and add it to this. Anyways, so negative 8/5 times 0. 0 plus 1 is 1. Negative 8/5 times 1 is negative 8/5. Plus positive 8/5 is 0. That's going to be positive 8/5 plus 12/5, which is 20/5, which is 4. So from this we can see that x, because this was our x column, equals 4. And this is our y column, so we can say y equals negative 1. I believe the PowerPoint starts with this. So let me go. Yes, I believe that's where it's at. Alright, so first write the augmented matrix. Okay, all this is telling us is that the 1s need to be in the first and third column, and the 0s need to be where the second and fourth are. Alright, so solve the system. So first write the augmented matrix. We did. So there's the augmented matrix. Now we're going to solve it, which means we've got to turn the first position into a 1. How? By multiplying by the reciprocal. So 1/3 times the first row and leave it in the first row. So 1/3 times 3 is 1. Sorry. I'm going to stop the video and start another one.